Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Psychedelics Today. This is Joe Moore coming at you from Breckenridge, Colorado. Today on the show, we have Emma Farrell, author of a really interesting book titled Journeys with Plant Spirits, Plant Consciousness Healing and Natural Magic Practices. This is in line with a thought I've been trying to bring to the show here and there for years now, in that Europeans have their own traditions, and we don't necessarily need to take the traditions of others. Yes, ours have been quite suppressed for a few thousand years, but largely those things never really left. They were always there. And Emma gets into her perspective on this quite a bit in the episode. I'm really thankful somebody like Emma is both experienced and can speak to psychedelic sessions, but also to this kind of more theoretically more subtle work with plant spirits from around here. Very interesting stuff, and I really thankful, honestly, that she's out there doing this and doing retreats and coaching and all that kind of stuff. So thank you, Emma, for being on the show. Thanks for playing a part in the space that I find essential. Cool. Well, I think that's it for the intro. I hope you all enjoy this episode. Some quick ads here, and we'll see you on the other side.
By now, you've heard a lot about Vital, our new 12-month certificate training course in psychedelic therapies and integration. It starts April 19th, and we've had an amazing amount of students applying to get into this first year of Vital. So many that we're actually extending the application deadline by another week, so we can now have more students coming into the course. If you'd like to apply, you have now until midnight on Sunday, April the 3rd. To submit your application, go to vitalpsychedelictraining.com, or you can email us any questions, vital@psychedelicstoday.com. Best of luck, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Emma Farrell, author of Journeys with Plant Spirits, Plant Consciousness Healing and Natural Magic Practices. Thanks for being here, Emma.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So your book actually covers a really cool thread that I've been trying to represent a little bit, or at least introduce the idea that Europeans had plant traditions as well. And, maybe it's okay to investigate our own traditions as opposed to jump into others. But yeah, you've put together this great book with actual steps that people can take to dig into, I guess themselves and plants. So I guess, Emma, before we dig into the book, how did you kind of come into this? Is this kind of just a thread that showed up in your life?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I have always been more into the spiritual side of life, and spent time studying Buddhism a long time, did a master's degree in that, practicing master's degree. And then while I was studying that, iboga came into my life and found me. I really didn't go looking for it at all. And so I was at an event, and lots of people mentioned it to me. And then suddenly I was invited to an iboga ceremony with people who primarily worked with addicts, but they wanted to look at the effects that this wonderful African root can have with people who were into their meditation and on their spiritual path. And so it was that was my introduction to plant medicine, and it was having a conversation with the spirit of iboga that completely shattered my paradigm and helped me to understand the Buddhist teachings rather than them being in my head. I could fully kind of experience them directly. So it was just amazing. And from there, I realized that I can't really have a long distance relationship with a plant that's from Africa that I don't have huge connection to. I wanted to understand the consciousness of the plants from my own indigenous culture, from my own lands. So that's when I started exploring plant spirits and of our common native plants and trees, and the culture that they reside in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess for a little bit of context, their historical, deep history. There was a really thriving religious tradition before the Romans showed up in England, Ireland, etc., and there's people trying to revive it even today. There's hopes that there was a continuous tradition, but who knows? but at least people have been on the land and with these plants for a long time.
Absolutely. And there's different traditions, there's the Druid tradition. And I think there are still, the Druid tradition is still strong within certain families in Ireland. It gets passed down generationally in certain circumstances. But then I also think that there's the tradition of the witches, witches and herbalists and hedge witches. There are lots of different types of witches have worked with plants and have to understand their spirits in order to understand how they work metaphysically. And that got squashed quite a lot over especially the witch hunts and etc. And those laws actually only got repealed here in 1959, those witch laws. So witchcraft was only legal again since the 1959, 1960s. So that's been on an upward trend of resurgence. And then of course we've got our own Celtic shamanic tradition as well. And so again, there's not really kind of a proper kind of human lineage, but what I've discovered is that the lineages and all that wisdom of our Celtic tradition and the way to work with the spirit realm, etc., is held within the plants and the trees and the land themselves. So is a tradition really lost, or is it just hidden? I don't know.
Right. I remember talking to some friends years and years ago about like the old gods being dead or something. And it was an interesting thing. She's like, not dead, sleeping. I was like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, because if you think about it, when people revere a god, when lots of people revere and kind of make offerings to and have statues of, etc., they're kind of like putting energy into the morphogenetic field of that god. And so that god, that consciousness can have more power and more influence. But if that kind of tradition falls away, then the power of that god gets lessened. And so they kind of fall off the pantheon, I suppose, and are not so influential anymore. But do they truly go away? Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they are always there in the blueprint. They're always there in the cosmos somewhere. It's just remembering them.
So when you jumped into iboga, was there any kind of like overlap from maybe what you brought to the table in terms of kind of spiritual ideation, or did it feel kind of like purely that world's medicine or substance or something like that?
The overlap, I suppose, I went into that experience wanting a spiritual experience, and that's, I was looking for an initiation into the spirit realm because I was doing all of this studying and meditating. It was a 2-year course and it was intensive, and, I'd been studying for a long time in India, etc., at the Dalai Lama's temple, but it was just all in my head. And so I wanted to break free of that kind of this, felt like I was in this box in my mind. I was boxed in, and I wanted to really understand rather than just kind of understand in the mind, but to feel and experience what all these Buddhist texts were talking about and these concepts. And so, the overlap for me was that the way that what I was studying was suddenly kind of brought alive by the iboga. And what I found as well was that the iboga would then, because plant spirits work through your particular filter, through your particular culture, through your mindset, then they teach you through a medium that you're going to know and you're going to understand. So somebody who's maybe from the Far East taking iboga would have a completely different set of teachings than to me. And so because I was studying Buddhism, I was being taught by the plant spirit in very Buddhist terminology and concepts. So I think the plants themselves adapt in order to communicate with us.
That's fascinating. Cool. So in your book, you kind of you lay out a number of exercises for people to engage with, things like alder, oak, rosemary, a number of other plants that are around. Wormwood was one of the more interesting ones I saw there. And it's just kind of cool to know that somebody's doing this. I think my last my last example I made was I looked out at the pine trees. It's like you can do a dieta effectively with these pine needles if you wanted to get to know the land and the plants a little better. But,
Absolutely.
But people want to say like, oh, the Amazon's more important or more magical maybe, which, it's certainly magical, but it doesn't necessarily exclude the rest of the world, right?
Sure. I mean, it's exotic. I've been to the Amazon, and and I've worked with ayahuasca and in Ecuador, and so I know how magical it is. I also know that it can be quite dangerous as well. And so those particular plants grow in the Amazon, and the people who are, the Amazonians are quite different people to us. So their medicine plants grow in a particular way. And so for me, I found that actually those kind of medicines are just too strong for me. I needed more kind of gentler plants. And so the plants and trees of my own land resonate with me and are able to rewild me, so to speak, in a much more kind of gentler but no less profound way. We don't have to be completely blown apart. It's quite a brutal experience sometimes, with those, with ayahuasca, etc. And it's not necessary that us Westerners need to be blown apart, although there is some argument that, we have such strong conditionings of the mind that, we need our skulls broken, in order to break through that conditioning. So there's arguments, for both really. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's something really special about getting to know the plant spirits and the plants of your own land, because you're going to resonate with them, really easily. You're going to understand them. They're going to understand you. You already speak to them on an energetic level when you're in the forest. So it's going to be a lot easier. However, what I found was that if you approach our native plants and trees like the oak, alder, elder, etc., with reverence and in a sacred way, as you would with, say, in a sacred ceremony with a psychedelic plant, if you approach them in this kind of reverential way, then they can be just as psychedelic. And you can have visions with them, and your meditations will be much more profound, etc. And so what I've done is basically take the kind of the basic premise of, say, a South American medicine ceremony, and worked with common native plants and trees in the same way. And yeah, it's profound, and it's just as enlightening and transformational. And so that's what my book sets out, this kind of methodology of working in this way. But I do set it within the context of Celtic shamanism, because that's my lineage, that's my home. And so working with the medicine wheel, etc., working with ceremony, working with sacredness and understanding sacredness, but also working with that kind of warrior element within that actually a lot of the kind of stronger master plants do kind of foster that warrior within, because they're very initiatory. And because we've lost the kind of the art of the initiation and the understanding of that in the West, perhaps the teacher plants can be really strong in helping us kind of find that inner strength again that we need. But but we can also kind of meditate on the warrior within, so that we can cultivate that energy in order to be able to work through the stuff that the plants and the trees bring up for us during our time with them. So it's really this kind of like healing methodology, this way of kind of getting into the cycles of nature through the medicine wheel and understanding the plants and tree spirits from an energetic perspective.
Beautiful. So we're talking about literally consuming these things, right? And being with them, or is it something different?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. I mean, when I run plant diets or dietas, as you call them as well, when I run them with participants, we fast for 3 days, and then we only consume that plant or tree. And so I'll make medicines from all the different parts of the tree. I'll make hydrosols and tinctures and essences, etc. And we'll kind of blend them all together in a really kind of beautiful way all together. Putting our prayers into it, drumming into it, singing into it. And so we make this medicine together, this elixir. And then across the course of the 3 days, we'll only drink that elixir throughout the day. And people will have had to detox before they come to the retreat as well, so that they're kind of nice and clean and they can just receive the medicine and then can work with the more subtle energies of the plants and trees. And then throughout the 3 days, we'll do inner work, we'll do journeying, we'll do breath work, we'll do creativity, we'll dance sometimes, we'll have fire ceremonies, and we'll just work in so many different ways so that we can embody the plant and really understand how the plant works within us, because we're all unique. So the plants and trees are going to work in a unique way for each of us. And so by the end of the 3 days, people have generally met the spirit of the plant, or at least been able to feel the spirit of the plant and how it feels for them, receive some healing so they can understand how the plant spirit works on that psycho-spiritual level, and have made a new friend, because these are conscious beings. So yeah, it's kind of getting to know a new friend, really, and nurturing that relationship.
So kind of just looking at your outline for the book right here, chapters, and this concept of kind of orienting around like what is spirit, then like some meditation and journeying, and then you kind of get into this idea of a warrior, and you mentioned that a little bit as well. There's other kind of psychedelic traditions that use that kind of language, very different in kind of origin. So I'm kind of curious, like, what does that mean to you, or what does the warrior concept kind of mean in the book?
Yeah, so I think that chapter is called Cultivating the Warrior Within, the ethical warrior within, because, when we're dealing with any plants and working with them, whether they're psychedelic or whether they're common native plants, they bring up aspects of ourselves. All nature reflects us back at ourselves. Psychedelics reflect your consciousness back at you, so you can see what mess you've made of your life. But common native plants and trees do the same thing as well, and so they bring up issues that need resolving, energies that are out of alignment, unresolved issues or traumas from our childhood, etc. And in order for us to be able to face those and not just kind of push them back under the carpet or push them back into the dark recesses of the mind, then we need to have quite a strong kind of warrior element, almost like a wrathful element within us, to tackle this head on rather than kind of trying to skirt and bypass these issues, that we can actually head straight for them. And so for me, this warriorship primarily is about cultivating this inner strength in order to face your stuff so that you can work through it with honesty. The ethical side to warriorship as well is this honesty, honesty with ourselves, honesty with others, because if we can't be honest with ourselves, then we're not really going to be able to move through very much. So there's a real sense of ethics that come into when you're working with in any spiritual tradition. They're all founded in ethics, because we're sorely lacking in them in many areas of our life, or they've got kind of twisted to suit our convenience. So yeah, for me, the warriorship is this inner strength, but also this inner strength to be ethical and to be honest. And some people call this radical honesty. They've got to be radically honest with myself. Quite often it's difficult because a lot of our stuff is hidden, and it's hidden for a reason. We've buried it for a reason because it's painful to look at. So we have to have this kind of like this inner strength to keep going, because things that are hidden from us, quite often it takes time to find them and to get to their root cause. So we have to have this endurance, this inner strength that's just going to carry us through as well. And so, referring back to the plant diets again, plant diets can be anything. You could do a plant diet for a whole month. You can do it for a whole year if you want to. Maybe not fasting, but you can eat kind of just plain food, etc. So you can adapt them to whatever time frame you've got. But generally, I tell people to do, if they want to get to know a plant really well, is to do a lunar cycle with them. Because our energies fluctuate, etc. So you need that strength to get through that time frame, the container that you've set, and to be able to face whatever's coming up for you. Because when you're dealing with some of the plants, especially plants like wormwood, which is a Artemisia absinthium, it's a real shadow plant. So you've got to be able to have some inner strength if you want to deal with your shadows and see the shadows around you that you're kind of pulling into your world. So yeah, it's really about having this inner strength that, we're quite pampered in the West. We don't really have huge hardships. Okay. We've gone through quite an initiatory experience the last couple of years. And I think that's brought out our inner strength in different ways and been quite enlightening for many, I'm sure. So it's building on that element, really, this concept of inner strength.
How do you deal with hard things? And deal with them with great poise. Yeah.
Yeah, because, we're used to having things fixed really quickly, aren't we? We go to the doctor, I've got a headache or whatever, take a pill, it's gone. So we're used to that kind of instant gratification. And so when it comes to working with plants and working with your inner self, working with your kind of unresolved stuff, it's going to take time. We're complicated beings. We're not simple. Some things can be straightforward, but some things can be really hidden and maybe past life, for example. So it just takes time. So we have to have a bit of patience with ourselves as well. That, some people are like, when they work with, just say, an essence protocol, the essence isn't working. I'm not getting anything. But if you've set a container, and this comes back to the plant diets again, if you set a time frame within which you're working, you're making a commitment with that plant spirit to work within that time frame. So for some people, like myself, I get all the downloads from the plant on the first day, and then I take the rest of the month or time of that container to work through it and to integrate it. Other people take kind of, the downloads come right at the end, so they're working through and they're kind of getting impatient or it's not working, but just have to have this patience that the plant spirit knows exactly what you need, when you need it, and it's working in the background even if you're not conscious of it, but then you become conscious of it as you work through your time frame, your container. So yeah, patience.
Yeah. So, there's probably people who haven't had an experience that feels like entity contact out there. So hallmark of the ayahuasca experience is this kind of experience of there being something there. More and more people are reporting that in psilocybin containing mushrooms. I've had it elsewhere as well, but in non-psychedelic sessions. So it's really interesting, but it's a really difficult thing to communicate. And people can be afraid when they start encountering these things. So having that poison warriorship to me seems just so essential, because you might be afraid and want to run away, right? Like I was totally bamboozled and steamrolled by ayahuasca for the first half hour, and then I was like, oh, okay. After that, I have this, after the terror stops, I'm like, okay, cool, let's go. But, we can have that outside of these traditional psychedelic experiences as well. Like, I assume that's why you're trying to have people kind of prepare a little bit, because they might encounter some pretty scary things on occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just their own stuff, but other people's stuff as well. And, there's a lot in the collective, so, but also it's really important to have a basic understanding of universal laws and maybe the occult, perhaps, to help you navigate. My background is in meditation and Buddhist tradition, so as well as the Celtic. So I had an understanding of how the mind works, and also, when we encounter spirits, there are a lot of stuff. There's a lot of spirits out there of all different interplanetary, interdimensional, etc., plant spirits, and so it is difficult to kind of differentiate between them all for a start. And so when your psychic channels are opened up on psychedelics or on kind of stronger native plants, then you're very likely to see them. And so, but you have to kind of know how to communicate with them, in that, there's a universal law of three in the occult tradition that, when you encounter or see a spirit or an entity, then to ask it 3 times who it is, or ask it 3 times, are they for your highest good? And so they have to answer the same answer each time if they are truly who they say they are. The universal law of 3 teachers that on the third question, if they shapeshift or if the answer changes, then they're not to be trusted. So we have to be a little bit kind of sensible when we're in those spirit realms, because we're not used to navigating them. And so when you get blasted into them with the psychedelics, or if you tiptoe into them with our common native plants and trees, you're still in the spirit realm. And so you're new in that realm. And so it can be dangerous. So, we have to take some precautions and just at least know some basics, I think, in order to navigate them. But yeah, there are lots of different entities out there, and we just have to be aware that stuff can be both separate to us, but also us. So when we come into contact with, say, demonic beings, they're both they can be part of us, but also separate from us as well. And so there's this paradox when we're encountering spirits. And so a basic understanding of the spiritual traditions as well, and spiritual concepts of like that can really stand you in good stead.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Having those tools is really helpful. And it's great you put together a guide, and have worked with a lot of people on this. Yeah. How do you usually kind of try to talk about the difference between maybe like the spirit of ayahuasca, the encounter of the spirit of ayahuasca, compared to maybe like alder or oak or something? Oak, a lot of wisdom is my thinking, but I don't know much more than that.
Yeah. So to start with, we've got, I'm going to make a differentiation between soul and spirit. So in my tradition, the soul is the animating elemental forces that we get from the earth that creates our unique personality for this lifetime. And that's the same for an individual plant or tree. And so they have soul forces, elemental forces within them. Working through those, that soul force is our eternal spirit. So the aspect of us that's traveled through lifetimes and come on this trajectory, and the same, and works through the soul forces to experience this three-dimensional realm. And so the same happens for the plants and trees, in that they have their soul forces, but they've got this eternal aspect. Some call it the chief spirit, or the overarching Davic spirit, or there are many names for it, the Apu spirit of that species. So there's a spirit of the oak tree in your garden, but there's also an overarching species spirit of oak. And so that's the first differentiation. But then the type of spirit that they are is just hugely variant. So sometimes, the spirit of the oak, for example, is a very noble spirit. So you get a very royal element, and to me it appears as this big kind of column of kind of golden light that really holds the divine masculine and the sacred dream of our lands. It's known as for such a long time. And so the plant spirits evolve as well over time, and through their interaction with humans as well. And then you've got other plant spirits that are much more, say, angelic in nature. And so Angelica Archangelica, as its name implies, really connects you to those kind of angelic forces, Archangel Michael, for example. And then you've got your more kind of witchy plants like mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, and the witch's first herb. And so the spirit of mugwort is very witchy. She's kind of, she's an elemental master, and she does many amazing healing things. She's just got huge repertoire. And then you've got other plant spirits like ayahuasca, who I find to be very kind of shape-shifting. She shape-shifts quite a lot from this really mothering kind of nurturing aspect to a very wrathful and forceful nature. And so each plant spirit works within their own energetic framework. So they'll be associated with a particular element, and they'll have planetary correspondences. And so they'll work within a kind of a framework of energies, different frequencies, say water element, or connected to, say, Pluto, or something will be Saturnian, and so carry the qualities of those plants and those elements. But each plant and tree will express those elements in a different way. So the spirit of the yew tree, for example, expresses water in a completely different way to, say, the lady's mantle plant, that's a water plant as well. And so each of the plant spirits works within their kind of like their little realm, or it could be a big realm if they're associated with lots of different elements. And so that's how we differentiate them and get to know them. And some people can perceive plant spirits quite well. You know, if you've got good inner vision, if you're clairvoyant, then you'll be able to perceive them through actually seeing them. Other people feel them, you know, if they're clairsentient. And so there are different ways of experiencing them and understanding them. But the more time you spend with the plant spirit, and this is why I work with plant spirits, because it's you can actually feel their resonance because they're in the same realm as you. You know, you're not connecting to some random ascended master or something that you don't really know the frequency of. But with plants and trees, you really can get to know the frequency of them. So really kind of get to know them on the energetic level. That's really important for safety reasons, etc. So yeah, it's getting to know their unique energetic framework, really.
Yeah, beautiful. And yeah, like this idea of having substantial experiences, like, you know, something on par with cubensis mushroom it feels alien. Like it feels maybe made up. This is how I kind of felt when I came into holotropic breathwork. I spent a lot of time there. It's like, no way breathwork is going to have something like can be as intense as LSD, right? Like it's hogwash. Yeah. And, you know, I'm sure people are going to feel the same way. But, you know, I would point people to plenty of stories in the Amazon of, you know, dieting with those plants. And there's plenty of people in the psychedelic scene who would have wild stories to share. So why wouldn't it also be the case elsewhere in the world?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and if you combine plants with breath work, wow. You know, I work with common native plants and breath work. And, you know, again, when the breath work takes you into that kind of altered state, slightly altered state, you can perceive the plant spirits and journey with them a lot easier as well. So there are different routes in for people depending on your level of sensitivity, I suppose. So people who aren't so sensitive to nature and to plants, etc., and to the spirit realm might need something like the breath work just to help them break through those boundaries and those blockages. But then for other people, you know, they don't even need to take my plant essences, which is vibrational medicine. They just put it by their bed and they can dream with the plant spirit. So there's just a huge range of sensitivity, and it just depends where you are on that scale, really.
Right. And, you know, if cross-cultural examples are helpful, this is also, you know, not very different from a lot of the African traditions, like hoodoo. If you look at New Orleans, like there's plenty of those things where if you're close to those plants, things can happen.
Yeah. And, you know, what's amazing is that those kind of traditions and our kind of more witchy traditions show you that, you know, the plant spirits don't just work on an internal level, they work out in the external world as well. And so what that teaches you is that, you know, the internal and the external are actually the same thing. There's no difference. So when you change and kind of transform things within yourself on an internal level, that just rolls out into your external world. And so things can fall into when things fall into alignment within yourself, so your external world falls into alignment. So that's a great teaching. And I think the more magical traditions kind of teach that quite strongly. And then your more magical plants can exhibit that more strongly for you. And so, yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people can have negative experiences of that rather than the positive. But it really does work on the positive as well.
How do you so say you encounter some sort of doubter, like how do you try to discuss with them that like, hey, there's some interesting stuff here, and maybe you might want to check it out?
I don't know really. Well, I think, you know, I always think that direct experience is the only way you're going to be convinced of anything. You know, somebody could tell you're from, I don't know, the planet Orion or whatever, but it makes no difference to you. But until you directly experience something about your origins, you know, then it's not going to mean anything to you until you have that direct experience. So for me, any doubter, it's like, I'm not going to be able to convince you with my words. There's just no point. Let the plants speak to them. Let them, if they really want to be convinced, then just go and have the experience yourself, rather than just trying to read it in a book or getting everybody else's experience. It's only your own that matters at the end of the day.
Right. I'm reminded of Terrence McKenna. It's like, try this. It's only 8 minutes. This is DMT, for example. And, he's right. Like this, you can be convinced that maybe there was some wrong thinking.
Yeah.
But if you give it an authentic attempt, like one kind of spiritual guy I follow a bit kind of says, try it on for size authentically for a while. If it's for you, cool. But, at the very least, you learned how this system works that's not yours anymore. Yeah.
And it's called medicine for a reason. It's not for everyone. You only need to take it if you need the medicine. So, it's not for everyone. And, and that's what, and so the teacher plants aren't for everybody. Not everybody needs them, but the majority of people really need reconnecting back to nature. And that's what our common plants and trees can do. The ones that are just in your back garden. Dandelion is so profound, and so powerful that, you just can work with the plants and trees in your own backyard.
That reconnection to nature is something I hear about a lot. There's been very little research on that in relation to psychedelics, but I think it is a really important topic that we should be digging into. I had a friend the other day say, like, he's interested in guiding, but he's like, I don't really want to do it unless it's outside helping people reconnect to nature. And I found that really interesting. And I've run into a number of folks like that in the past. And I don't know, how do you characterize this disconnection from nature? Or do you have anything you lean on for that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're disconnected because we are nature. It's just that we've forgotten our deep connection. And so whenever we're working with the plants and trees or any plants, it's just a remembering, remembering who we are, remembering that we're not, because when we're using all this technology and we're so outside of ourselves all the time, then we're kind of like we're disconnected from our interiority, and our interiority is nature. We're children of the earth, and so we've just really kind of got out of contact with our deepest elements of our humanity. Those deep roots into the earth, and for me, it's just remembering them and allowing the trees and the plants to help guide you back to them, because we've all forgotten in different ways, and we all carry different ancestral traumas, we all carry different issues from childhood, and so we've forgotten ourselves in lots of different ways. And so different plants and trees will just teach us different things and help us remember in different ways. So yeah, it's more of a remembrance, but I think it's really important nowadays because we're so kind of fixated on the external world that you know what it's like. You go out into the nature spot and it's timeless, and we're so kind of like up against the clock all the time that we're just kind of racing all the time and racing through life and not being still and appreciating the present moment. But you go into nature, and it just, any plant or tree or waterfall just sinks you into that like present moment. And so it's that stillness that we're missing, because the true nature of the mind is still silent and spacious. These are the ancient traditions of the true nature of the mind. And so how do we get back to that true nature so that it helps us to release the stress, release all the kind of the toxicities, release the kind of the traumas, the issues that we've got? We need to get back to that stillness, that inner stillness and silence, and nature helps you do that like within minutes, so it's just a no-brainer, really.
That's interesting.
Literally a no-brainer.
How do you like to differentiate, because there's layers to this stuff, like this kind of assorted psychic problem. So we'll say, on one hand, eating disorders and OCD, on the other hand, like depression, or the other hand, like some sort of like spiritual malaise, like that's maybe not the right way to put it.
Yeah, I don't understand your question.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So like, how do you differentiate between like traditional psychiatric disorders as like medicine might see them compared to like maybe spiritual disorders? Like, I don't know. I don't want to say possession, but that's kind of where I'm going. But like,
yeah, well, a lot of people have entity attachments. Possession, when they're actually taken over, people are taken over by the spirits, is quite, rare actually. But a lot of people carry attachments. So there are entities attached into the energy field, and these are, from lower astrals to demonic beings to ETs, lots of different thought forms even.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of psychological issues are literally just caused by things that are influencing you in your energy field. And we have so many toxicities in our world today, from countless earthbound spirits who, because we don't have proper funeral rites anymore, we don't die properly anymore, we've forgotten how to die, and right through to managing our energy field. We just don't think that we have to keep our energy field clean, and that we might have stuff in our energy field. But what's in our energy field affects the mind. And so those entities that you've got from, your family, because we share entities between our families, between our loved ones, they influence how we think. And so a lot of people who have psychological issues isn't actually their own issues. So people who think that they are kind of have really low self-esteem and it's chronic for them and has caused them eating disorders perhaps in their life, actually quite often it can be an entity that's in their energy field that once removed, it's not telling them that they're, useless or, worthless anymore. And so that's just removed. And so they can slowly come back to balance. I'm not saying this is the case in every case, but quite often a lot of those issues of the mind are issues of the energy field. So yeah, it's just a case of, and this is one of the things I teach actually quite a lot is psychic hygiene, because we really are not realizing how much we carry in our energy field that's not even ours. I clean the energy field. That's what I do for a living is I clean people's energy fields for all my clients, and I do it remotely. And about 80% of what I take out of people's energy fields or release is not even their own. So they've just picked it up, or kind of inherited it. So yeah, I think if we had a better understanding of managing the energy field and our energy bodies and better understanding of our kind of energetic hygiene, then we would have a lot less mental issues in the world and psychological issues.
And what do you typically prescribe people do, just generally speaking? They can come to you if they want more specifics, but like what kinds of things help people have less of that, especially from others?
Sure. Well, meditation is really important because meditation strengthens your energy field. So it's not always about having protection and putting layers of protection around your energy field, which is what a lot of people do, although it is advisable in some cases. It's a case of strengthening your energy field and keeping it clean. So meditation strengthens your chakras and therefore strengthens your energy field. Salt baths, eating high vibe food, exercise, the usual stuff to keep yourself healthy can also help the energy field as well, but also working on those kind of disruptive and destructive emotions and thought patterns within yourself, because they're coming from your energy field and vice versa. The mind, the energy field, the body, it's all one. We just kind of split them up in order to understand them better, but actually they work as one unit. So you have to keep everything kind of like in alignment and clean, healthy body, healthy energy field, etc. And so just the basics is having salt baths or swimming in the sea. This salt just cleanses the energy field. And so if you've been in a city or you live in a city, it's really important to kind of do that on a regular basis so that it helps you to keep a clear mind. Things aren't draining your energy field. And yeah, just working on those kind of issues within yourself that create these blind spots in the energy field and in the psyche and therefore the energy field, through which kind of infiltration can come. So entities, etc., who want to feed off your life force and drain you and make you feel more of the kind of the lower vibrational stuff that they feed on. You can prevent those from happening when you do the inner work, the shadow integration, the kind of the trauma release, etc. So it's a lifetime's work and it's an ongoing maintenance. But we have to shower every day, so we have to also keep our energy field clean as well.
Beautiful, cool. Yeah, this is very in line with plenty of the stuff I've studied in the past. This is really nice to hear it from a slightly different lens. And how do you ever have to interact with like doctors around this? A big portion of our audience, like medical people, right? So people are like, oh, I don't know. But, realistically, we're pretty obvious we're electromagnetic in nature. We have a large component of that going on, and people kind of interact with each other. And sometimes stuff feels great. Sometimes stuff feels horrible. Like there's plenty of people that can come into your life that feel really bad, make you feel bad. Then there's people that really just feel amazing to be around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess my question is something around like, how do you discuss that publicly?
How do I discuss how some people have a positive kind of vibe, and I suppose it's how much of an empath you are. Do you soak up people's stuff when you're around them, or do you, or do you not? It depends on how empathic you are, and also who you're spending time with as well. Our family obviously knows how to push our buttons really easily. So if you're, there's an old saying that, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend a week with your family, because, your buttons will be pushed, but it's training ground, I think. So, yeah, I think it just depends how empathic you are, how strong your energy field is, how strong your boundaries are. So it just all works on a psychological level.
Cool. So say you were working with somebody with no real experience in the spiritual, like what kind of, beyond meditation, what maybe might you introduce them first in terms of like a plant to work with?
I would generally introduce them to mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, because that plant has a long history of working with humans and can be very visceral in terms of how she works. And so that plant spirit is and so diverse as well. And so she's got really amazing teachings. So and just can help bring so much alignment. Mugwort is the plant that the Chinese do the moxibustion with, because it's the plant that burns the closest to the human body temperature. And so they burn cones of mugwort, Chinese mugwort, on acupressure points to push qi into the body, to warm parts of the body they've got stagnation. And so they say they can heal the moxibustion masters say they can heal anything with mugwort, in this way. So it's a really powerful plant. And so she works with energy. She works with alignment of energy, and so can help during breech births, for example, in a traditional midwifery. She was used in that way, but also helps to realign our energies. And so really helps us to kind of shift through stuff and kind of change imbalances, and in such a powerful way and in such a protective way at the same time, that so you feel safe while you're doing it, that you can't mistake it. And so for new people who are still kind of getting used to working at that kind of perhaps more subtle level, mugwort isn't so subtle. So it's good to work with perhaps a plant that's kind of not going to blast your brains out, but is also not really subtle either, and has this experience already of working with humans. And so yeah, mugwort is, she was my first ally too. So yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've been really curious about like somewhat traditional Western alchemy, and like there's a lot of overlap here with the way you're kind of discussing it, which to how they traditionally talk about it, and it's really interesting to me. Like a lot of the planetary correspondences, and we are astrology friendly here. We're just astrology quiet at Psychedelics today because it's a little bit radioactive. So we try to be subtle with it, but. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And this idea of a lunar cycle, working within a lunar cycle, like there's a lot there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, alchemy, part the magical systems, whether you work with the planetary correspondences or not, there are correspondences all in everything, in nature, in stones, in crystals, in rocks, and in the fire, in so many things, there are energetic correspondences. And so in any magical tradition, it's not necessarily which system you use, it's just that you believe in it. You can write your own system of correspondences, but as long as you understand in it, it means something to you, so that when you work with it, you're creating that magic for yourself. And so it's your belief system that makes the magic work, not somebody else's. So yeah, whether you're using the alchemical system, whether you're using other natural magic, those correspondences are really important. And so, of course, the plants come into this, in that plants can be worked with in that magical way as well. And so we can, in South America, they work with sacred tobacco to make prayers and send their prayers to spirit, knowing that sacred tobacco has very strong earth and air element contained within it. And this particular axis is a great conduit to spirit. And so we have that, those kind of qualities within other plants as well. And so depending on what your intention is, an ethical intention, I hope, not trying to influence anybody else, but, you can work with the moon phases, the astrological alignments, and the plants in order to set strong intentions. We're recording this on 22 of the 2/22, this for some people, even though that's Gregorian calendar, and so people think it doesn't mean anything. Actually, it's a calendar that many, many people work with, so there is an energy imbued within it. And so perhaps the energy of the twos can be worked with in this way. You add plants to that, depending on what your intention is, and you can really bring some kind of power and force into what you're wanting to change within yourself, or what you're wanting to manifest perhaps, or what you're wanting to kind of heal or realign. And so yeah, we can work with all of these things. We just have to find the right path for us, really, as long as it's, like I said, in alignment with ethics and not crossing that boundary of influencing others without their permission.
Mm-hmm. So say for example, you're chatting with somebody who's, had, something like 10 ayahuasca experiences, maybe 2-week-long retreats in the Amazon. And you're like, hey, maybe you don't need to fly over there all the time. Maybe check these things out. How would that kind of conversation go?
Well, I'd probably introduce them to elder, actually. The elder tree is our ayahuasca. I don't know. I'm sure you must have. I think we've got Sambucus nigra over here. I'm not sure what kind of elder you've got over there in America, but maybe red elder. But we've got black elder over here. And so there are a lot of similarities between the elder and ayahuasca. So I would perhaps, if they were from the British Isles, I'd perhaps introduce them to a plant that they would be therefore familiar with. And an elder is the one. She's very initiatory, quite a revered, and people are quite scared of the elder spirit. Actually, even in modern days, it's very well known that there is a witch spirit that works through the elder. So it's very kind of feared. Nobody wants to kind of chop a branch off an elder tree even today, because the spirit that works through the elder is very powerful. And so really it helps you to have that initiatory experience into the spirit realm. Works on ancestral healing as well, which is similar to ayahuasca, and that can help you see those ancestral patterns within yourself. And an elder also helps you by giving you this experience of the spirit realm, helps you to see, helps you to die consciously. This is the teaching I got from ayahuasca, and I think is one of the main teachings of ayahuasca, is how to die consciously, not necessarily how to live a life full of wealth and happiness in this lifetime, but actually thinking about your next reincarnation or whatever, but how to die consciously. And so those two plants, ayahuasca and elder, show you what, if you died right now, this is what you're going to experience. So they'll show you what's in your energy field, what your unresolved stuff is. And so they give you this kind of really deep experience of both your earthly life and the spirit life at the same time, so that you can learn what you need to do in order to resolve stuff before you die, so that you can have a much better death, so that you can have a conscious death, and you can perhaps choose where you want to go consciously, rather than just being swept along on the winds of karma. You can actually, have these plants show you what you need to resolve within yourself. Because the plants don't fix you. Ayahuasca doesn't fix you, but she gives you a lot of homework. And, there's a whole, so you do your kind of retreat in the Amazon or wherever, and, there's a whole integration process afterwards, and that can take years just from one session of ayahuasca. So, and it's the same with Elder. Her teachings are so profound, and because she's teaching about the fundamentals of the stuff you need to sort out, that it can take quite a while to integrate. So I would probably introduce people to Elder, actually, and because powerful tree.
And you're talking elderberry, like Sambucus.
Nigra, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, people know elder from elderberry syrup, for your cough and flu. But that's just the very tip of the iceberg of what she can actually heal. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, and so if you took that elderberry syrup just to help your cold and flu, you're not going to suddenly have ancestral healing experiences. It's all about intention with plants. So when you take that elderberry syrup for your cough, then that's what she's going to do. She's going to purify your blood so you can kind of heal. But if you took that elderberry syrup in a ceremonial way and with reverence, and with the intention to connect to the spirit of the tree in order to learn about yourself, that's what you'll experience. So it's all about intention.
Beautiful. Well, this is really fascinating. It seems like something that people can engage with that, doesn't put them at risk legally. It seems like a beautiful, natural spiritual practice with a lot of depth, probably a massive amount of depth that I'm not even, intellectually scratching the surface of. So I found it seems really beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, that's just the start. There's a whole plant queendom out there to explore, and so there's so much to learn all the time. So yeah, it's a vast subject area, and also you develop your relationship. The more you work with the plants in this way, with the plant spirits, then you work in a much more co-creational way with the plant spirits as you nurture your relationship with them. So, for example, I work with my spirit team, who are basically a team of plant and tree spirits, to perform psychic surgery for people. So we work in this co-creative way. And so the more you understand the plant spirits, the more you can work in a more precise way for your own healing and for others. And of course, as we work, the more we work with plants and trees, the more we clean our energy field up, the more our unique abilities and psychic abilities just awaken anyway. So we're able to work in a much more quantum way, and which is really ancient but really futuristic at the same time. So it's just it's mind blowing, the plants. And I think this is the technology that excites me. This kind of quantum technology is the most far out and the most exciting. Not some kind of Facebook meta universe. Sounds rubbish.
Right. It's, once you get these big experiences, you're like, oh, that digital representation of it's a little weak.
Yeah.
Those things can be helpful for some context, but really it's not. If you're looking for the spiritual engagement, it's inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are the most amazing technology, I know all technology is just an externalization of our biological functions and our kind of the functions of the human. We are the original, most amazing technology, and the plants can just help clean us up and help show us how amazing we are. So yeah.
There's a line that I'll butcher, but it's like this: the hinge of my hand puts like the most amazing inventions of mankind to shame. Just looking at your hand, and that's why some people get on psychedelics really enraptured by their hands. They're like, this is so incredible that we have this. And,
I know.
Yeah. And then it goes a lot more beyond the hands. And there's a lot more out there that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, for sure. We have a lot to learn, that's for sure.
So you said you were doing retreats in the past. Are you working on planning retreats in the future?
Yeah. I'm just putting together some kind of retreats for this year and some courses, just depending on what people need. Finding that people really need the psychic hygiene teachings, how to manage their energy field, but also shamanism 101, really how to look after themselves energetically. And also, plant diets, working with different plants and trees this year, and also growing them. So, I grow the medicines or harvest them from the wild that I work with. So yeah, I'm looking forward to them actually, because I've not been doing any in-person stuff for a couple of years. So I'm really looking forward to getting back in circle with people. We're really missing that human connection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I really miss hosting workshops. And, it was a
Yeah.
big part of my life for so long, and I'm just endlessly excited to get back at it. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
me
awesome.
too. Yeah. Yeah. I feel quite kind of, yeah. I wouldn't say I'm isolated, but just that human connection, like we really need
Mm-hmm.
it. Zoom just does not cut it.
Mm-mm. Not at all. Do you
Yeah.
and mostly the retreats will be in the UK?
Yeah, only in the UK. Yeah. So, to find out about them, yeah, just visit plantconsciousness.com if they're open to the public. And so, yeah.
Great. And do you ever have interest in doing stuff or future plans around explicit psychedelic stuff in a legal country like Netherlands or
No, not
no?
necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
We do have our own medicine here in the
Mm-hmm.
British Isles, but I don't really work with them in a retreat context. No, so no, I don't. But
Great.
yeah,
No, that's it. It shows that this path is deep enough. There's
yeah,
plenty here, and
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
how many generations of people have worked with these things in the past, and what can we relearn from those plants?
Absolutely. All the wisdom's there. I went on a huge journey around the world. I lived in many countries, and I was overseas for like 15 years studying and learning different cultures and finding out about their wisdom traditions. And then, like I said, went and did this master's degree in Buddhism. And then I moved back home and realized that all of those teachings and all of that wisdom, the highest Buddhist teachings, they're all here in my own land, in my own culture, in Celtic shamanism and in the beautiful Celtic wisdom of these lands and held within the plants and trees, that I didn't necessarily need to go searching. It was always right here. So, but sometimes we need to be shown. We need to go on that journey to come back home again. And it's all there. It's just all hidden and held in the land and the trees. So, yeah.
Beautiful. So right about time. Is there anything you want to shout out in terms of websites, social media accounts, anything out there that you want people to connect?
Just plantconsciousness.com if anybody wants to get in contact with me or find out what I'm up to. And, you can get links to my online course there and my book and Wisdom Hub TV. So yeah, there's just plantconsciousness.com.
Great. And I know you used to organize a lot of conferences. Is there one in the works this or next year?
No, I'm done with those
Okay.
big events. No, I'm just no, I'm just more interested in the inner work nowadays. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And yeah.
Cool. Well, Emma, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I hope people took a lot from this. And yeah, I just feel like I'm thankful you're out there pushing this, because I've been pointing to this idea for a long time, and now I have somebody to really point people to. So thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you for your work too. Yeah, amazing work that you're doing. So yeah, a real great voice for our psychedelic friends.
All right. Until next time, Emma, thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
And there you have it. Emma Farrell, author of Journeys with Plant Spirits, Plant Consciousness Healing, and Natural Magic Practices, the guide to working shamanically with plants. So yeah, I haven't had a chance to read the book yet, but I got to see the outline. I'll probably have a copy pretty soon, and we'll try some of this stuff. It sounds really fascinating. Sounds, like we do have traditions that do look somewhat similar to some practices in Amazonian shamanism in our kind of European lineages, I guess. So maybe it makes sense to lean into that instead of leaning into other people's. I know it's too late for some of you, but if you're still curious about what happened in your own genetic lineage, maybe check that stuff out. And yeah, no shame, regardless of what you've chosen. I don't care. But as long as we do it respectfully and authentically, all good. All right, I think that's enough for now. Thank you for listening to this episode of Psychedelics Today. If you have any feedback, hit us up, info@psychedelicstoday.com. Leave us some feedback on some socials. And if you could do us a favor and share with some friends, we would really appreciate it. So I think that's it for now. Thank you for tuning in. This is Joe Moore signing off. Bye-bye.